If you want to open a store in the real world, you lease or buy some retail space, or maybe you buy some land and you put up a building. And the same is true for many virtual worlds. But my question is, how does all of this actually work? Like, is it as complicated as buying property in the real world? And how much does it cost? And what do you do with it when you own this digital property? Well, today our metaverse experts are back and they're ready to explain it all. So this week we are buying digital real estate in the metaverse. That's right now and everything we know about retail. It's the show where we tell all of you everything we know about retail. We broadcast live on the internet most Thursdays at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific, but you can watch anytime. You can find us on YouTube. Just follow this URL, everythingweknow.show. My name is James Cook. I'm coming to you live from Indiana, and let's welcome in our guests. First guest back, returning guest, I should say. Camren Daly is VP of Technology in the Metaverse Studio at Globant, and you're joining us from Seattle. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. And then Nelly Ortiz leads the U.S. Business Hacking Studio at Globant, joining us today from Miami, right?
Yes, I'm in Miami, in my office in Miami. I see people around me. But yeah, very excited to be back in the show.
I love it. So a couple of weeks ago, we did our first big picture, what's the metaverse? Why do you care? If you missed that, go to everythingweknow.show and go back a couple of weeks. It's actually proven to be one of our most popular episodes. It got a large number of replays. I think people really care about this topic. I don't want to go too much into big picture because mostly we're going to dive into the real how-to stuff. But one big picture question, why do you want to own as a company, as a, in this case, a retailer, which much of our audience is, why do you want to own digital real estate? Like, what's the purpose?
Well, I can start with that one. I think the question goes, and if you think about it just as we buy land right now, why is it exciting for you to buy land where I am right now in Miami or Seattle or the middle of Alaska? I think there's three things that I normally see, like when you start thinking about the perception of value of a piece of land or a development. The first one is the community. Even individually as a person, you say, okay, which are the people that are going to be surrounding me in this land, in this space? So let's say in Miami, what are the type of people that I have around me? How many people are there? So for a brand, do I have the traffic? Do I have the target user that I want to actually go into? Same thing with the virtual world. Is this space, let's say Roblox, 12 and 13-year-olds, is that your target user? Is that the people that you want to have a community around your brand? Is that the people that are going to consume your services and your products? Is that the one? Then that would be a very easy way to get into, one metaverse space. If you want for an older target, maybe you go to the Centraland or the Sandbox. And the people that are interested in crypto, maybe those are the spaces. So community is the first thing. And community in metaverse, as we talked also in the last one, is a very important core part of all of this. Second would be experience. Is the experience of that place around me, of that world engaging? Do they open at night? What can we do for fun? I think it's, when you move to another country, you always ask this to your friends, what can I do for fun? What are the rules of engagement? Well, every world has very different rules of engagement, right? Like I can do certain things, I cannot do certain things. With the technology that we have now, we're limited to certain, things. There's worlds that have a VR experience. Do I want that experience? Do I just want a desktop experience or a mobile experience? All of that has to do with how do you want to, make your time in this world? And then as a brand, what type of experience I want to create for the people in this world? And the third one, I would say access. How hard is for me to get to that world? in the normal space, how, do I need to jump into 5 planes to get to this private island? Possibly, but maybe the experience will be much better or more exclusive or something that I've never lived before. Very similarly to these worlds in the metaverse, there's some that are easier to access. There's some that you have a little bit more blockers to get into, but it's maybe more exclusive, more specific, maybe something that people have not experienced before. So I summarizing those three things: community, experience, and access.
That was so brilliant. I can't believe I've never thought of this before, but we do it in our work. We do a lot of what's called cross-border retail, where a retailer wants to open stores in a new country they've never been to. This is just the same thing. It's all the same questions. I love it. Okay. So we promised hands-on how to, so we should get into it. Camren, you're going to kind of walk us through the actual process of, we're going to do some real screen sharing here. You ready to go?
Yes, we are. First I want to do a little bit of just basic vocabulary about some of the concepts and terms that we're going to be talking about. So I will just share my screen. It's a real quick one slider. I promise we're going to get into the 3D world here in just a second.
You're fine. You're fine. I love it.
But let's see here. Let's do this. Okay. So just 3 high-level things that we have to be aware of as we're looking at digital land in these metaverse platforms. Today, we're going to be looking at decentralized metaverse platforms, but there's also centralized platforms. But these are the more modern ones and the ones that are more interesting these days. So the first thing that you need to really understand about buying digital land is, as we know, like decentralized metaverse platforms, they're built on blockchain technology, and you need a crypto wallet. And so that part of land ownership, of interacting with this ecosystem, denotes the ownership. So if you purchase land, you're going to purchase it. It's going to be associated with your wallet. So I have a Ledger wallet here, which is a hardware wallet. On here is a private key that assures my identity. There are other wallets you can use, like Coinbase has a wallet if people are familiar with those. If you want to learn more about wallets, you can watch our last show where we talk more in depth about that. But if you're an organization where you don't want an individual to own any of the digital land that you purchase, there are also consortium-based wallets that require everyone to sign off before they purchase anything. And then a blockchain. So a blockchain is, once you have an identity, if you purchase a digital item, whether it's land, that blockchain holds that ownership. So ownership lives in the blockchain. These metaverse platforms that we're talking about, we're going to look at Decentraland today. There are many that exist. Sandbox is another one, but that really recognizes the ownership. So we'll see what that means when we dive into Decentraland. So there's a separation between showing that you own something and recognizing that you own something. And then finally, in each of these platforms, there are creator tools that allow you to give utility to the digital land that you've purchased. So these are the three areas that you really need to understand as you're considering land purchase.
Hey, real quick, you held up a wallet.
Yes.
A wallet could be on a computer, right? It doesn't have
Correct.
to be like, okay, yeah.
Yes.
So just it lives in a digital.
There are security reasons why you might own a hardware wallet, which is what this is, which means it's separate versus a software wallet that can live on your phone. It's just, where does that private piece of information that controls your identity live? If it's here on a separate piece of hardware, it's less hackable. If it's on your phone or in your web browser, you're still protected, but it's just degrees of separation from nefarious actors.
Got it. So we're still sharing screen. Here you go. Yeah,
I'm going to switch over here to Decentraland. So we dove into Decentraland last show. We walked through, we saw some of the experiences, but today we are going to find where there it is.
Are you sharing your, oh, there you go.
Now I am. So today, so this may look familiar for folks who were here last time. So here's Decentraland again. So this is a decentralized metaverse platform. I logged in with my wallet. So I was able to prove my identity with my crypto wallet. And you can see there are people hanging out in here. And if we open up the map like we did last time, so they have land scarcity in Decentraland. So you can see here, all of these squares are plots of land. And if we click into them, there we go. If we click into them, we can jump into these digital land experiences that they've built. So I think we wanted to look at the real estate office last time. So let's see if we can get in here.
And kind of extending that metaphor of these are different countries. What's the target audience like in Decentraland? Like, who would I be reaching if I were, say, to open a store or experience in Decentraland?
So I would say right now, you're reaching people who are pretty heavily invested in crypto. They have a cryptocurrency wallet, and they're interested in technology. So they'll join these worlds to see what experiences are made. They may have excess cryptocurrency that they want to purchase, or sorry, excess cryptocurrency that they want to spend, rather, and are looking for ways to use that. The utility in some of these crypto-based decentralized platforms sometimes is the token that the metaverse is built on itself. So in Decentraland's case, it's built on the Ethereum blockchain, but its internal currency is called the Mana token. And so some people will move their cryptocurrency over to the Mana token in order to make more money, because you can play games, and in some places like ice poker, you can gamble your in-game currency. So there's a utility to playing with the economy in Decentraland.
Yeah. And I would say the majority are the people, we call it the crypto enthusiasts. They're probably not experts, but they want to dab into it and figure out different investments. But also we have another target that is the social gamer. There's a way to go to Decentraland that you can just visit as a user and just experiment certain things. And then the people get more invested into experiences and games. And then maybe they get into, okay, you know what, I'll just open a wallet to just get more into like the experiences and the games. So the social gamer is becoming even more and more active in all of these platforms, not only just the blockchain-based ones, but others. And then normally it's like 18 to 45-year-old type of people. I would say even in the younger population, I think the 18 to 25 is the one that you see the most here, like very young, but like, people that have already money, they're working, they can spend. So even a younger population like Gen Z is getting very into it, but like also like the younger millennials are probably they're also diving into it. So it's a very interesting targeted, and it's moving, fluctuating as we go. But that's kind of the target user that you will see in Decentraland.
Thanks, Nelly. So here we can see the world map. We know that all of these squares on here, we can zoom in, are purchasable plots of land. But how do you actually purchase it? So on these metaverse platforms, there are two primary ways that you can get access to land. The first one that happens, especially early on in a metaverse platform's life, they do land drops, which they say, okay, so we want to sell some land to the public, so we're going to sell this entire block. And you can buy these individually, but we're going to have a big event where people can come in and mint these brand new pieces of land. And so that's usually the primary in these metaverse platforms, how you get access to land, especially early on. Then there's an entire secondary market that we'll move into now. So I'm going to leave the 3D world for now and jump over to web as soon as I find my window control.
And every parcel in Decentraland, it looks like they're all the same size. Is that right? So
the parcels themselves are the same size, but there are mechanisms to combine them or buy larger versions of them.
Okay.
So that way the 3D experience is like a larger shared set of parcels that you can walk between.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And in terms of pricing, I feel like everyone kind of asks, like, how much is it now? Literally today, the cheapest piece of land that you can actually buy in Decentraland go for 3,487 mana. Mana in dollars right now is, one mana is 82 cents. So right now it's like around $2,000, almost $3,000. So that's kind of like the cheapest piece of land you can buy now in Decentraland. However, if you go, for example, in like the most expensive transaction that has happened, I think it's around like $4.3 million. And that happened in the sandbox, and it was actually made by like a development company that do games and experiences. So there's a lot of investment, a lot of people putting a lot of big money into it to create these experiences, right? So it's just more like, what do you want to do with this land? It's not just buying land. I think there's some people buying land as an investment. They see the growth as anything. If you want to invest in something, study it. First thing you need to study, where does this land come from? Who is the company around it? A lot of these decentralization of land comes with an opportunity for you to vote in the decisions that these roles make. So it's also an interesting thing. You become part of the community, and then you literally become, as anything. If you buy a piece of land that is huge in Miami, I am sure you can have certain decision making, into like what happens around you. Very similar, but it's even more regulated and more transparent in a digital piece of land, because there's rules of engagement already with the blockchain. So that's why I think it's so interesting, is because it becomes more transparent and more available to you to make these decisions as a consensus, as a community. Leave it to you, Cam.
All right. So we had talked about getting access to land drops early on, and something like Decentraland, that doesn't really happen as much anymore. So if you want to purchase land in one of these metaverse platforms, you will need to go to a secondary market. And so there are two places where you can do this. Decentraland outright has a web interface where you can go and look at different pieces of land, and you can actually sort by on sale. Since I am not a crypto millionaire, I usually sort this by the cheapest, just to see what's out there. So if we take a look at this parcel of land here, it's here in this giant district here, and it's 3,200 mana, which right now, if we go look at the real-time price of mana, it's 81 cents about, so you can do the math there. So
ish $3,000 ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's real money.
that is real money. The thing to consider here is, and so we can talk about a little bit about the dynamics of actually purchasing land, because when you spend $3,000, if we look at some of these plots, Decentraland is you can see there are thousands and thousands of plots. I forget exactly how many, 300,000 or something. I can't remember the exact number of plots. Or is it 60,000? Anyway, there are a lot of plots here. So discoverability in an ecosystem on a metaverse platform like this is vital. And because the world is contiguous, meaning that you can go from one plot to the other just by walking in 3D space, as we saw in the last show, being close to things that are important, like these big green plazas where they tend to dump people when they enter the world. So this would be a spawn area. If they start walking in a direction, the odds of them hitting a parcel close by to this is greater. Mm-hmm. So that's a definite consideration when you're purchasing in these contiguous land metaverse platforms, is that you want to identify the parcels that are closest to the most activity. Right now, if we go, looking at Decentraland before, if you look at the map, the most activity right now is in what's called Vegas City up here to the northeast. It's one of these. Anyway, Vegas City right now is really popular because it's the gaming area. Gaming right now is one of the easy wins in a metaverse platform. So if you can find land near there, it can be a win. So this is one way to purchase it. You can go through Decentraland outright. You can go see their map and see what they have. The other place is OpenSea. So OpenSea is a NFT platform. So land is a form of NFT. And here you can purchase NFTs. People can put their NFTs for sale. They can also put them up for bid. Some of the same land that you see in the Decentraland for sale interface is also here as well. I'm sorry, Nelly, you were going to say something.
No, how we describe these things is OpenSea was one of the first marketplaces for NFTs, right? So it became very easily a secondary marketplace for a lot of these lands. Anything that has the structure of a non-fungible token, so a land could not be, that piece of land is unique and is not replicable. So it's only that piece of land, where it originated and where it came from and who owned it, all of that should be traceable in the blockchain. So because it has all of these characteristics, it becomes an NFT, and you can sell it in OpenSea, which is an NFT marketplace. That's why this makes sense, right? That's why people can sell these things, and then it becomes a bigger ecosystem of different players coming into place, right? Mm-hmm. So same thing as like I bought a land, but like I have a broker This is basically becomes the broker of digital assets. That's OpenSea. And they get a transaction fee when you buy or sell land. And then you can, that also fluctuates depending of the company or the marketplace. OpenSea is just one of the big ones out there.
And that price, 2.45, that's in
Ethereum.
Okay.
Ethereum. Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So depending on what the seller wants to receive, they will put a piece of land up for a different price and a different cryptocurrency. So this one, they want to get Ethereum for it. And what's great is when you come into something like OpenSea versus Decentraland, you can see a bit more of the history of this piece of digital land because it's built on the blockchain and the blockchain is open and transparent. You can see all the transactions that have happened with this particular piece of land over time.
Wow.
So sorry, these are the offers, and then if we go to the price history, it looks like this one hasn't been sold yet. So this one hasn't been resold yet. Someone's holding on to this one, but you can see the offers people are making. So you can go in there and try to, like on eBay, you can go in there and you try to overbid somebody to try to get access to that land.
Gotcha.
But you can see the price here. Yeah.
And if I'm evaluating like this parcel as an example, I can see what people have offered, what it's sold for in the past.
Yep.
Can I how do you think about like this specific one? Like, where is it in the world? Like, if you were to say, like, can you like go look around in it?
Yeah. So I think that's the one disconnect that OpenSea has is it doesn't have access to the map. So you can see in platforms like Decentraland and Sandbox, where they have a 2D map of the world, they tend to have an X and Y coordinate, which marks their uniqueness in that metaverse platform. So if we go to 115, negative 120 here, let's see if I can do this. Let's see if it'll let me do this. Oh no, well, let me search. Anyway, you could find it on the map and then click in there and you can see, oh, okay, cool. So this is, this one in particular is for nearly 5,000 mana and its proximity to here is pretty close. You have, a good number of parcels away. But, that's going to show you where it is. It's next to this original decentralized set of streets that they put in there.
I love it's so comparable to real estate in the real world because we talk about points where a lot of people spawn. In the city, we're looking at you're closer to a subway station. You're worth more. It's like the same. It's the same thing. It's just in a virtual world.
Yeah, and in the same way, like it's not just proximity to something like a plaza, but it's also proximity to, hey, look who just moved in. Atari just moved in down the street. Like that could bring people here. So maybe we should start building games on our parcel. Or what, for the people who are going to go play on the Atari parcel, what should we be? Should we be creating NFTs that are gaming related? How does that change the land dynamic as well?
Something we discussed last time in our first show was the whole concept of leasing land. And this is where it becomes even more interesting, right? Like there's brands or companies that will buy a parcel of land, parcels, a district, as we call it, kind of like a big part of land. And then they actually make a sense of it. So see it as a development company. A development company buys a huge piece of land in like Seattle and they want to develop it. And they say publicly, this is going to be the fashion district. So now they open it up to every fashion company to be like, okay, so if this is going to be the fashion district, maybe I should be involved. So like in this case, in the Decentraland, when Camren was talking about Las Vegas and city, they have a gaming in the district. So then like you as a casino might be able to just like lease a part of that and then have your own game, but then you don't have to buy land, you lease it. So you have another type of contract with this company, and then you start doing basically like any other business, your own experience selling or buying products or, any type of experience that you want to charge for. And this will happen with anything, right? So I think this is where it becomes interesting is what other business models can actually create with these lands? What experiences do you want to get into? And as Camren was saying, which neighbors are around you that make sense?
Is there zoning? Are there only certain places you're allowed to gamble or something like that?
There is intentional focus areas. I wouldn't say that there's zoning. So the idea is that in Vegas City, while Vegas City is owned by a landowner, effectively, that's not related. It's called Decentral Games. So Decentral Games said, we're going to buy this giant plot of land and we're going to build Las Vegas, and then we're going to lease out those lands to people. But you could choose to build a casino anywhere you want. It's just, if people are already going to Vegas City because that's the largest gambling district in Decentraland, you'll probably want to build close to that, unless you can find another way to get organic, traffic, either digital foot traffic, or, with digital, we have access to, Twitter. If you can build a community around your brand, you can circumvent the need to have proximity to other things if your discoverability is coming from other places. So that's a little bit of the benefit of having a community and having social networking infrastructure. So that way you can send out messaging about your metaverse experience and drive people in that way.
Yeah, I feel like anything, when you have a brand that has enough recognition, positioning, and community already, you can build, basically you can do whatever you want in a way, right?
Yeah.
Drive that public to that space. I think if we compare it to the real Vegas, who would have thought people were going to drive miles to go to the middle of the desert to play something? It's because they build the ecosystem, they build something unique, and then they actually start bringing people in with marketing. I think United States is the best country in the world in marketing. Kind of hands off into anything that we do here. But I think it's that same concept. It's like, how do you market in a way that is disruptive and fun? But if you want to just do a disruptive, and this is what I'm calling brands, a disruptive marketing experience, do you think it's going to be just like a couple of months just to get buzz, get people that are already in the metaverse into your store, or experiencing something new with your brand? Maybe makes sense for you to be closer to what other brands are doing and then like make buzz there. So it really depends on your objective and what you want to create in these worlds.
Mm-hmm.
You want to buy land, lease it, just buy it for a little bit and then sell it as an investment. It really depends on your strategy as a company.
Yep.
So now that let's say we've identified a parcel of land, and we're like, we like it, we like the location. What's next?
So what's next is, you have to get over the price tag, I think is the first part. So take a deep breath.
Look at that.
Take a deep breath. And
I will say it's cheaper than land in the real world, right?
No, that's true. That's true. And it's actually cheaper now with, crypto had a slight downturn. So, some would say this is the best time to buy, in theory. But yeah, once you've picked a land, so you've evaluated, its proximity and its usefulness, what you want to build there. We can talk a little bit more after we go through this about choosing an actual platform, because that's another set of questions you need to ask yourself. But once you're ready to purchase a plot, first thing you need to do, which I didn't do, is you have to add that money to your crypto wallet. So whether you do that through Coinbase or Uniswap, there are a couple of platforms that allow you to, let's see if I can pull up Uniswap real quick, that allow you to take, how is it called, Uniswap? Anyway, there are platforms that allow you to add crypto to your wallet. And once you're in there, once you have cryptocurrency added to your wallet, and actually I can probably do it better through OpenSea.
And is there a single way you create wallets, or are there a lot of different ways?
There are a lot of different ways you can create wallets. So we could do a dive in that as well. But Coinbase is probably the simplest for everyone to get into. So they are what's called a custodial wallet, which means that they own the private key on their backend, which is good for people who don't have a lot of experience with crypto wallets.
Yeah.
Because then they sign anything that needs to be done that impacts, the cryptocurrency that you have, needs to be signed by that private key. So it has to go through them. So it reduces the amount of risk that you accidentally send your cryptocurrency to somebody you don't mean to, or that, someone gets access to your account and drains it. So custodial wallets are great for people who don't, like me, want to own their private key and have to take care of it themselves. But from this point, so once you've added cryptocurrency to your wallet, it's really as simple as going into buy now. and you would check out like you would anywhere else. Usually what happens is, so I don't have enough Ethereum at this point right now, but if you were to purchase it, you would see a pop-up coming from probably MetaMask wallet, which is a tool used to connect your browser to your wallet. So it's just sort of a intermediary that curries the request that needs to be signed to authorize the purchase across to OpenSea to initiate that smart contract transaction. All of that happens sort of behind the scenes. But once if we had funds, we would hit buy, sign the request, and it would be transferred over to our wallet. So that's the great thing is, let's see if I can. So I don't own land in Decentraland, but I do own it in Sandbox. So if I go look at my profile, once you've completed that transaction, buy now, signed request, it'll show up very similar to this. So we can see same kind of interface as Decentraland. This is for Sandbox, another metaverse platform. But you can see I own this plot of land within proximity to what is a high traffic area on Sandbox, which is what this big box represents. Inside of here, like once you own land, you can see the offers that people have made to purchase your land, because once it's out on the blockchain, it's visible by everybody, and people can make offers on your piece of land. And you can see the price history. I think this only had one owner before me, so it's relatively in good condition, although digital land doesn't degrade in quality over time, which is nice. But yeah, so once you own it, so this is half the battle, right? You've purchased your land, you now own it, it's in your wallet. And the metaverse platform that you purchase it in now recognizes that you own it. So when you purchase land, like in Sandbox or in Decentraland, it opens up a little bit more of access to do things on that platform. So one of those things on Decentraland is deploying experiences. So you now own this land, you get access to the builder tools, and Decentraland, Sandbox, all of these metaverse platforms have these tools, if they are a relatively mature metaverse platform, to actually build something on top of what you've purchased. So right. The catch here is that let's say you are in Decentraland and you go to a parcel and you visit it and you see like, oh, there's something, and eventually this will load. There's a great building on top of this piece of digital land. There is a separation between what is shown on that piece of digital land and what is shown in the blockchain. So the metaverse platform recognizes that somebody deployed that experience to that piece of digital land. But when you purchase it, those assets don't transfer to you. So you effectively get a blank plot of land for you to build stuff on top of.
Just to make that clear, I own some land. Let's say I build a house on it. Yep. I sell that land. The new owner only owns the land, and it's now blanked out and there's no house on it?
Correct. So that would be a metaverse implementation. So Decentraland, Sandbox might choose to say, okay, we have this this set of geometry and this code that somebody had deployed to this land, but it's been transferred to another user. They could choose to transfer that, but most of them don't, because when you buy land, it's kind of the presumption is that you want to build something new on it. So in depending on the metaverse platform, those assets may transfer, but it's up to the platform itself. The actual experience, the 3D models, none of that lives in the blockchain associated to the land by itself. And that's I think that's the important thing to recognize, is that, once again, wallet and blockchain only represent ownership of the land X and Y coordinates in that metaverse platform. They don't recognize what's actually built on top of it.
Gotcha.
So once you do get a piece of land, you may try to negotiate with whoever you bought it from. Hey, could you send me over the files? I would really love to just redo that. Otherwise, you would come into a tool like this, and let's see if we can.
And this is interesting. The clients that we've been talking to, because if you think about it, then after you have the land, you might not have the capabilities as a company to start building on top of it. Same thing as you buy a piece of land in the middle of Seattle, and then you're like, well, I need to buy a house. most people are not going to actually build the house. So you have to hire someone to build the house for you. And then this is where companies like ours, come in. Because we say, well, we can actually build you the house and we can build you the experiences that are in it. So if we want to build a mall, what would be this mall look like? The architecture, the experiences inside, the different types of flavors of games, the economics around that land, all of that needs to be built. So we are here to figure out the strategy of how that's actually built. What are the things that you would like to take risks on as a company? You have a risk level. There's some companies that are like, I'm here to take all the risk of the world. I really want to do something disruptive. Some other ones are like, what is the less risky experience I can build on a metaverse? And we're here for both, right? And then when we start building these things, all of these lives in code. We're a technology company. So then we need to figure it out, what are the developer tools in each platform that will enable this experience you want. And that's where we start thinking of choosing platforms. So one thing that Cam and I have done a lot in these projects is like, okay, from the experience that you want to build, which platform makes more sense to you? And if none of these platforms make sense to you, then we can build land for you, which is really create a world from scratch. And that's kind of like our thinking of process of doing this.
So you're in like a builder thing in Decentraland. Do you have to pay for materials or is everything free?
So there are some free assets that they include, but
like
some
Canva.
of these, but in a lot of these platforms, in order to this is where the UGC, the user generated content economy comes, is that, if you want something, if I wanted this cyberpunk door and the person who created it was selling it and they're like, yeah, it's an NFT for a door. If you want to use it, it's, half an ETH or 200 mana. So they start to like play off of each other. It's like, I'm a creator, I'm creating an experience working with the creators who create 3D objects in these games. And so, yeah, I mean, you can also create your own. So if you are good at creating 3D models, you could potentially mint your own NFT and sell it in the same marketplace, and people could use it in the things that they build. But I just wanted to point out that, here we're looking at, this is the size of one parcel of land. So you can think about, the type of experience you would want to build. If you only purchase one parcel of land versus a couple to build an estate, this is what the size of your experience. So you can build a meaningful experience on here, but you are limited to this particular space. So if you want like large rolling hills and mountains and like really expanse, you're going to have to invest a lot more than just one parcel. And as you can see, I haven't built much in Decentraland. I've built a little bit more in Sandbox, but the tools here are pretty flexible. There are typically two variations of tools that you can use to create. So usually they have like a web interface that is simplified, so that way you can spin up something very quickly and give your land a little bit of identity. Maybe not too much utility, but you can at least have a place for people to go to. We saw that with the real estate building where you could go and walk inside of it, but there wasn't anything to do. And to what Nelly was saying earlier, if you want to build a game experience, if you want to do something a little bit more in depth, there are tools that are greater than what these simplified editors offer that allow you to build out those experiences in something like the Unity game engine. So more traditional game development, more traditional 3D space power tools, and scriptable events that allow you to really build a fully functioning virtual world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I suppose the expectation is that Decentraland will eventually evolve into something more like a video game engine. Like, because right now it looks the graphics are a little old school, just because of the nature of it. Like, is the expectation that the technology kind of catches up to video games at some point?
Well, I mean, it's already here. If you look at, graphics wise, I think Decentraland, when you think of these metaverse platforms, we're very early in their maturity, but they are they're trying to build these like large spanning contiguous spaces with thousands of concurrent people playing at the same time, and that is a that is a technology problem. How can you have people who are playing through their web browser on their, Pentium 2 and people who are playing on their, their gaming PCs? How can you have them how can you have them playing together? You have to lower the graphical fidelity. You have to make sure that geometry is relatively simple, so that way it can be downloaded very quickly. You have to make sure that avatars aren't too complicated, because if you have 1,000 of them in one place, the networking cost is going to be high, and the computation cost to actually show that is going to be high. So Decentraland has to live in this weird space between trying to be a huge futuristic metaverse where everyone can come and play whatever they want, and the limitations of our current hardware.
What a paradox. The more, you want people, you want to be popular, but the more people, the more computing power. And so the less, the less graphical fidelity you can have.
Yeah. Or you cut off some part of your market, right? These are the things that metaverse platforms have to consider, and people wanting to purchase land have to understand about these platforms. So these platforms, they have to make technology decisions early on as they're building out, in order to target the right group of potential players that they bring in. So that's why a lot of these metaverse platforms, one of the things you have to really, really consider when you're picking a metaverse platform, like Nelly was saying earlier, is community. If there's a strong community around that metaverse platform, especially a creator community, people who want to build things for it, you're going to see sort of a cyclic flywheel that people are creating for it. They're trying people's experiences. They're bringing their friends in to say, hey, come play my game, and it'll grow itself. So they're picking a metaverse platform based on functionality, based on the utility you can give to your land, based on the community around it. All of these things, very, very important when you're looking to buy land.
Wow, so fascinating. Well, I want to ask you both about cost. So on the one end, you've got DIY. So the cost is really my time and the cost of land, which could be a few $1,000s, and then me figuring out how to build on that land. But let's say I want to do something really professional. Are we talking budgets of tens of thousands? I would imagine at least hundreds of thousands. I mean, I know this depends, but just for a sense, what's kind of the range?
It really depends.
Yeah.
Literally, my client just asked me that. I was in a client pitch, and it was exactly that same question. It's I just want to understand the ballpark. And I'm like, well, you need to also give me a ballpark of the idea that you have. So
Okay.
I think in the first time we talked about metaverse, it could have the flavor of so many things, right? When you start thinking about Web3 and the trends and what you can do, you can have a loyalty program based out of crypto, and that's actually an implementation of a metaverse in a way. And that's something completely different of building a metaverse from scratch. Let's say it's just an experience, virtual experience for your clients that could involve something like having 10 games. So basically, we're building 10 mini games for this experience, and then rendering, and depending on the style that you want the avatar, and then what this world is going to be doing, the fidelity could be, the range could be so big and so small as you want it to be. So I think that's where it's so hard for us to be well, I'll give you this. It's not $2,000.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking to do something cool. For example, my company manages a lot of shopping centers. So let's say, hey, we want to make a digital version of our shopping center, and we want to do a virtual concert with, I don't know, some famous DJ, whatever, what's a famous, Skrillex or something. Well, of course there's paying for the talent, and that's separate, but just imagine building a virtual shopping center, and then all of the stuff. You've got an event people to put on the event. It's just as complicated as putting on a real event, right? So I mean,
right,
easily millions.
You can build a digital twin. Let's say you can. That's what we call a digital twin, specifically when it's something that is a replica of your mall virtually. That's a digital twin. It's also done for, let's say, blueprinting. If you want to start building something or showcasing, let's say you want to build a new mall, and then you can have the blueprint of it. That's the digital twin of it. And then if you want to do events on it, then we need to figure out the capabilities for broadcasting, if you want to broadcast something, or just kind of have the avatar play like a digital twin of the DJ play in the space and have the people audience to be able to come in. It could be a live event, or it could be something that is recorded. And I think Dead Mouse did something that it was an experience that you can come in every hour and just be part of it. So different types of experiences done. A different price if you do it in the central land, you can do it in core, you can do it in the sandbox. I think sandbox have had a lot of concerts. I think Ariana Grande was there. I think Dead Mouse was also there. I think a lot of them have had these experiences, and it's not crazy expensive, but it's also like it's doable. We are doing it right now.
Yeah.
It's just specifically on what we want to gather and do with it. But
yeah, and I think that right now is a really great time to unapologetically put your brand out there in like prototype kind of ways, because as we move to right now, today, we are not, we do not have a fully functioning metaverse as is depicted by our futurists, but understanding how your brand looks in a 3D space, how your company's economy intersects with the digital economy, and how your brand plays out as a story in the metaverse almost, or as a character in the metaverse. All of those things are important to prepare, your brand for your company for, because it's going to be a component in the same way that everyone had to have mobile development. They all had to have a mobile app and a mobile experience. At some point, you're going to need the capabilities to think of yourself in a 3D digital space, and that right now it's a great time to start creating the little prototypes that say, are we a game company in the metaverse? We might be a retail company that sells clothing, but are we really a game company, or are we an event company, or are we a social company? Do we let people socialize around our brand? Those types of experiments about how you take your core competitive advantage right now and spin that out into the metaverse is going to be vital for longevity.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question that I'm sure you hear all the time. In the real world, we say they're not making more land. So the value, is always going to have intrinsic value. But you could argue in the digital world, you could always make more land. So how does something that is potentially infinite hold its value?
I love that question because everyone's talking about scarcity. I think we even talked about it. Some of these platforms actually have scarcity. So then you actually see that part. But then I also kind of start asking, people that ask me these questions like, well, do you want to live in the middle of Alaska right now? And
I live in Indiana, so.
Exactly. I was an exchange student in Indiana. So it's a perception of value of that land, and also the perception of scarcity. I think we have so much land that is unbuilt. We have nothing built there in the world. And why is that not built? Why is it that you're not building there, apart from like, a place like New York City, where it's literally cluttered into like the latest part of that city? So I think it really is about perception of value. I think now we're talking about, Tesla trying to get into, where are we going to Mars next? And, is that going to change the level of scarcity and the value of the land that we have in the world right now? I do think it's really just thinking about the economics of the perception of that value. Thinking also, and this also, I think, compares to cryptocurrency and cash. Like if we talk about the USD right now and the perception of value of cryptocurrency is the same kind of concept. It's like, why is a digital coin has to be scarce? And like, why it's like, how is the dollar scarce right now? Before we had the dollar backed by the gold that we had in our Federal Reserve. It's not like that anymore. So what is it really? What is that control? So now it's controlled by the government. However, all of these pieces of land or cryptocurrency are controlled by the people and the community that are actually doing something in those communities. Mm-hmm. So it becomes part of the people, and the democratization of these decisions and a consensus is what is interesting about the decentralization of these technologies. So I always go back to the perception of value. It's like, what do you perceive as something that is valuable to you, and how much of that you're willing to put into to be part of that experience?
Yeah, and it's all about location. Like it was really made clear to me when Camren started showing a map and saying, yeah, well, here's a place where lots of people are going to be. So the closer you are to that, the more your land is worth. Like, that's just so clear. It makes perfect sense. Like, if you want to buy a lot of land for cheap, you're going to be farther away from people, just like in the real world. Yeah, that's awesome. So we're running out of time. You both are just fantastic, have been amazing resources for me. If viewers want to connect and reach out to either of you, what's the best way for them to learn more?
Feel free, reach out on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active.
Same.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And the company is Globant, Globant, and Camren Daly and Nelly Ortiz are the best, according to Bradley Stewart.
Thank you, Bradley.
So thank you for joining us today, Nelly and Camren. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I learned quite a bit. Thank you.
I love it. That's what it's all about. I think we're all learning here. And when I say it, I think a lot of my clients are more sometimes scared to ask these questions because they feel like they're gonna appear dumb. Guys, no one knows. We are here building this ecosystem together. Brands, developer companies, real estate company. Everyone here is trying to be part of the community somehow. And I see it as a big playground. Like, let's have fun with ideas. Let's come up with experiments. Let's think of how we can be disruptive. I think this is actually the time to play dumb and do crazy fun things. Later, maybe that's not the case. Maybe in 5 years, everyone knows about it, and maybe you're afraid to even get more questions. I think this is the time to really ask all the questions you have.
I love it. That's perfect. It's a time for questions and for doing crazy dumb things.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm always in favor of both of those. Thank you, Camren and Nelly, so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right. If you would like to download our latest research reports, you can find them at jll.com. We write reports on all kinds of commercial real estate. Go to the trends and insights section, and they're available to download for free. We also do a podcast, which is different than this. It is a weekly in-depth audio interview. It's called Where We Buy. It's on all kinds of different retail topics. We've got over 200 episodes, and you can check them all out over on whatever your favorite podcast app is, or at wherewebuy.show. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Or you can join most of our viewers like to watch us on LinkedIn. We broadcast through the JLL Retail page on LinkedIn. So go over to LinkedIn, follow JLL Retail, and we'll be back next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern. Or we'll be on YouTube or at the JLL retail page on LinkedIn. I got that right. Yeah. And if you want to know more of everything we know about retail, you can join us here again next week.